Hey guys, we are Sean and Christy. This is Long Long Honeymoon. This week we have a very controversial topic. Campground checkout times. I have a feeling that I'm personally in the minority as far as my position on this topic. But personally, early campground checkout times drive me crazy.
Yeah, 11 a.m. We've been to some that have a 10 a.m. checkout time.
You know, the checkout time sometimes seems to have been inherited from hotels and motels. But hotels and motels typically have a maid service coming in to clean the room, which is a process that takes some time. It is very rare that we see campsites being cleaned by the campground, because quite often there's not a whole lot of cleaning that needs to happen. We've seen it at Disney World, we've seen it in some of the Florida state parks. I'm not saying it never happens.
But it's pretty rare.
And I will point out in the Florida state parks, for example, the checkout time is 1 p.m.
Which is very respectable.
Yeah, 1 p.m. I'm totally fine with.
Yep.
2 p.m. is even better. And we've stayed at some campgrounds where you could get a 4 p.m. checkout time.
Yeah.
Especially on Sundays, because those campgrounds were really trying to cater to families and to weekend campers. Because personally, I think if you have a, let's say, 11 o'clock a.m. checkout time, for example, and you want to take your RV out for the weekend to a state park or a local park, you know how much effort is typically involved with hooking up your RV or getting your RV prepped for travel and then taking it over to the campground, setting up camp. You know, by the time you finish setting up camp, it's Saturday, and you better start breaking down camp pretty soon because you have to leave so early the next morning.
Yeah.
The afternoon checkout time allows you to have a more leisurely final morning at your campsite. You could have a nice breakfast. You can maybe even have a nice lunch. And you can take your time sort of prepping your rig to move on. Whereas those early campground checkout times, it just changes the entire tenor of your departure day.
Yeah. And there are a lot of times when we would like to stay in a campground for just one night when we're passing through a town, but we won't be getting in till maybe 8 o'clock at night. And they want us to check out at 10 a.m. the next morning or 11 a.m. the next morning. And it's like, it's not worth having to pack up early the next morning just to stay for one night. So we'll pass that up and just, you know, park in a parking lot somewhere like a Walmart or a Cracker Barrel or somewhere like that. So if there were more places that had later checkout times, you know, I think they would see maybe a boom in maybe one night stays, and then also those weekend stays where people are just going away for the weekend, coming in on Friday night, leaving on Sunday. And, you know, having to leave at 10 or 11 a.m. on Sunday morning is a bummer.
Yeah, we would be much more likely to stay in campgrounds as we travel around the country if they had later checkout times. You know, the other issue is if you're full-timing, and especially if you're working from your RV, sometimes you really need that time in the morning to get some work done before you travel in the afternoon. And it robs you of that time if you have to check out early for no apparent reason. Again, the campsite is typically not cleaned by the staff, or whatever cleaning takes place takes about 5 minutes of just hosing it down with a water hose. And it's typically, I would say, probably sitting empty for 2 or 3 hours, especially in these early checkout times.
Yeah.
So my belief really is that these early campground checkout times are not good for business. Like if you own a campground, why not have checkout times that incentivize people to stay in your campground and incentivize people to come in and do some weekend camping? So this is what you go camping in a state park for.
I think the Florida State Park system is very smart at doing the 1 p.m. checkout. They sort of get that most people are, you know, on vacation. They don't want to have to set an alarm on the day that they're leaving so that they can get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and start packing up all their junk so they can be gone by 11. You know, they're giving people a chance to sleep in a little bit, have their breakfast, enjoy themselves, then pack up and leave, you know? Because very rarely, I'm sure, do they see people arriving before 1 p.m. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because it does, but most people aren't arriving till later in the afternoon, 3, 4, 5 o'clock, you know? That's when you see, I think, a lot of activity in most RV parks and campgrounds, at least in our experience. I'm not saying that's the case everywhere. Maybe a more reasonable checkout time, just make it a much more pleasant experience for people.
Yeah, the whole point of having an RV is you have your own hotel room. There's no maid crew coming in to clean it up. So why not let the RV owner linger a couple extra hours in the campsite? I don't really see any downside to it, and I see several upsides. I'm sure that some of you out there will say, we like to get up at 5 in the morning and get on the road and arrive at our campsite and check in at noon.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm sure there are several of you who do that.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to disagree with us on this topic.
I would say probably the norm is people, or at least, like I said, from our experience, people arriving in the afternoon. I think the really early arrivals is probably unusual, and the really late arrivals are a little unusual. It's probably that late afternoon group, you know, that's the average. Now, there are some places, like Disney World at Fort Wilderness, where there are a lot of people, they drive in the night before and they want to check in, you know, at 11:01 the next morning so that they can make the most out of their Disney vacation. And, you know, places like that, I sort of get it's a little unusual, and so 11 a.m. checkout time, okay, I get it. But for the most part, state parks, national parks, whatever, you know, back it on up a little bit.
And by the way, I'm just going to throw this idea out there. We have often discussed that there is no reasonable alternative to overnight parking in like Walmart, Cracker Barrel, and places like that. That would be a campground alternative. Somebody needs to create overnight parking in a safe, secure space with a dump station and water and electricity.
It would be expensive to do, but eventually it would make money. Find places along the interstate where there's not really any business that's going to build there. Block off a parking lot, could be gravel or what have you. Put in a dump station, put in a freshwater spot, have a, you know, credit card scan with a, you know, a gate that opens and closes to let you in. You just find a spot that's safe to park for the night, and then when you leave, you scan your little card and, you know, the arm raises and you drive out. It would be sort of that pay by the hour almost sort of mentality of, you know, when you get there, and when you leave, and, you know, maybe it is something you pay by the hour, or you pay for 12-hour blocks or what have you, just to give people an easy way to pull over and stop and empty their tanks and fill their freshwater tank and move along when they're ready.
Yeah, we've discussed this before with other RV travelers, including a lot of full-time RV travelers, and everybody agrees this would be a great idea. Somebody needs to build it.
Especially in those sort of places in the country where you're between destinations, like I-10 through South Texas, where there's just sort of nothing for a long stretch of interstate. It'd be a great place to put it.
And you know the land has got to be cheap there.
Yeah, super cheap. So,
sorry guys.
Elon Musk, you need to get on that. I mean, you know, I know you want to send people to space, but let's do something maybe a little more attainable.
Electric cars, colonize Mars, set up cheap RV overnight parking with a dump station. Should be doable.
It would be an instant hit.
All right, guys, those are my controversial beliefs on campground checkout times. I want them to be later.
What do you want?
I like a relaxed morning.
Yeah,
So what
we
do
are
you
not
think?
morning people. So if you're a morning person, chime in. Let us know what you think about early checkout times. Do you think they're great? Do you think they're whatever, you don't really care? Or do you agree with us that later checkout times would be awesome?
Yeah, personally, I just see no downside to an afternoon checkout time. There is literally no downside. So that's what I think. What do you think?
All right, if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family, and click that subscribe button down below if you haven't yet. We would love to have you join us here on Long Long Honeymoon and be part of Loloho Nation. Until next time, what do we say?
Lolo.
Loloho.
Hey Hey guys, you know, your support of our Amazon store this year has been so amazing that Amazon actually sent a film crew down from Seattle to visit with us and shoot a commercial. So we want to thank you for doing your Amazon shopping through our store. Secondly, I wanted to show you the next product we will be reviewing. It is this guy, a monster 1500 watt hour lithium battery that has an AC inverter and also outputs DC current. 1500 watt hours. This thing is incredible if you're looking to power a CPAP machine while you're boondocking, or electric fans or TV set, pretty much anything. You're gonna find this review very interesting. Thirdly, if you're gonna be in the Yellowstone area next month, be sure and keep your eyes open. You just might see us. Later.